Good morning. With the help of Hashem, we are learning Yerushalmi, Meiser Sheni, Pei Gimel, Halacha Vav. We're learning today Daf Lamed Beis, Daf Lev, and we left off 4 lines from the top of the Amid, Amar Rabbi Yosi. So we just learned in a Braisa, as the Gemara actually reconciled two Braisas that appeared to contradict each other, that the prerequisite when it comes to redeeming an item that was consecrated, for it to be able to have ha'amada v'ha'aracha, which means that a living animal that for whatever reason has to be redeemed, either lachachamim, we don't differentiate, kedushas mizbeach that got blemished, bedek habayis, as we have been learning, kosher animal, not kosher animal, even meiser sheni. A living animal has to be fit to stand ha'amada, and then to be evaluated, and then to be redeemed based on that evaluation. If an animal cannot stand, in the context of it's not alive, it's a dead animal, it cannot be evaluated, and therefore it cannot be redeemed. So the Gemara, or the Braisa, said the following, that if an animal was consecrated while alive, this is the key, and then it died, there is where we say that since you can't do ha'amada v'ha'aracha, you cannot redeem it. But if an animal was consecrated from the outset, already dead, that means from the outset, what's the difference between consecrating a carcass, which has whatever value it has, or consecrating a table? There's no din of ha'amada v'ha'aracha, and therefore it could be redeemed. That is where we left off. The Gemara is going to try to substantiate that. We're going to have a proof. We're going to refute the proof. We're going to go back to the proof from a Mishnah that we have in Masechtas Me'ilah. And just to share one quick recap of Me'ilah. Generally, if something belongs to the Beis HaMikdash, if someone inadvertently benefits from it, then they're chayiv to pay its value, the value of the benefit, plus to add a fifth, plus they have to bring a carbon. But there is a rule by Me'ilah. And these are the words that v'choil shehu ta'un pidyon, only an item that requires redemption, mo'alam ba is subject to me'ilah. And as it will be understood, not only an item that requires redemption, only an item that is redemptible, that you could redeem. If an item cannot be redeemed, like in our sugya, something that needs ha'amada v'ha'aracha, but it can't have it, that would be an item which will not be subject to me'ilah. It's amazing, even though you, of course, cannot benefit from it, but the dinim of me'ilah will not be shaykh to that, as we will see how that might or might not help us bringing a proof. After all this back and forth, the Gemara is going to simply go back to case by case by case to halacha vav. We're going to go back to the case that we spoke also about yesterday, that if someone pours tevel wine into containers, and then you seal the container, and only afterwards do you declare the wine meiser sheni, then the container itself is also viewed as meiser sheni. The Gemara is going to give a source to that ruling. We're going to see in the Gemara that this rule, that a kankan sasum, a sealed container, will always render its contents, will always render the container subservient to its contents. We will always say the kankan is tafel to the yayin. And we will say that not only as we say it in the Mishnah, l'chumra, that means the containers are meiser sheni with many restrictions, but we will also say that l'kula. Now the Mishnah, if you remember, moved on from meiser sheni to truma. The Mishnah regarding truma spoke about a case where, again, where you placed wine in a container, and the Mishnah says that if you sealed the container, then the truma can no longer be nullified if there is a mixture of truma, even with another 100 or more barrels of chulin because of a davar chashuv. And the Gemara is going to be machadesh that this, then in the Mishnah, that a sealed barrel of truma is not batel, is only when it was declared truma after it was sealed. It's amazing. But if it was declared truma prior to it being sealed, even though it was subsequently sealed, it will be batel echad b'meya. We will learn a braisa that will differentiate all of the dinim that we learned in the Mishnah by meiser sheni or by truma regarding the wine in a container. That oil in a container will not have the same halacha as we will see. And finally, We began yesterday's shir actually reading the Mishnah Machlekes Beishamai and Beisilol, and the way we had learned Pshat in the Mishnah, which is the Havamina of the Gemara, is that when you have Truma and it was sealed, and then it got mixed in a sealed barrel with 1,000 barrels of chulin, doesn't matter, it's not nullified. So then the question is, if you unseal it, what will happen? And it appears that on this, Beis Shammai says, well, unsealing it in itself is not enough. If you want for there to be bittul, you have to pour it back into the wine press. And Beis Hillel says, all you need to do is to unseal it. The Gemara is going to offer us a complete new understanding of the Mishnah that Beis Shammai, Beis Hillel are b'chlal not talking about the last case that we just mentioned. And we'll see how far we get into various new understandings as to what is even the case of the machlokes Beis Shammai and Beis Hillel. Atkan, the recap, this is Daf Lamed Beis, Daf Lamed Beis, Amadal of 4 lines from the top of the Amid. Now that we made this differentiation, Hamada v'ha'aracha only pertains to animals that were alive b'shas consecration. If you were magdish an animal already dead, doesn't matter that you cannot do ha'amada v'ha'aracha. Yes, you can redeem it. So the Gemara is going to say, Amar Rabbi Yosi, 4 lines from the top, this masnisa amra kain. I have a Mishnah that will prove this differentiation. Now we are quoting a Mishnah Mesechtas Me'ilah, and so says the Mishnah Chamoir. If a person consecrated a donkey, and as it's evident, we're speaking about a female donkey. I'm saying that because it's a donkey that also produces milk. Al-Vadai, right? It's a non-kosher animal. I know that for one mitzvah, a chamoir is given some chashivus. Okay, pidyon peter chamoir. Bottom line is that zicher not kedushas mizbeach. So this is a classic item that was consecrated lebedek habayis. And again, we're learning Mesechtas Me'ilah, which normally would mean that if someone inadvertently, bishoygek, derives benefit from this chamoir, the chayev me'ilah, keren choimish korban asham me'ilois. So the Mishnah says that not only will someone be chayev me'ilah in the donkey, but more, that's the chiddush, uva chalava, even if someone benefited from its milk. Now you would argue, pshita, big deal, of course, if it belongs to the Beis HaMikdash, it belongs to the Beis HaMikdash. No. Guys, milk is an inanimate, right? It's a doimem. You can't do ha'amada v'ha'arach on milk. I know that. Of course you can't do it. Now, v'cholav lav k'meisahi. Now, so what? What does one thing have to do with the other? So here is the rule. And this, again, we said this in the intro. There's a general rule. V'chol shehu ta'un pidyon. The normal application of the rule means, the literal translation of this rule is that only something that requires pidyon is something subject to me'ilah. But the Gemara understands this rule to apply to other scenarios as to our. Only something that is able to be redeemed. V'chol shuhu ta'un doesn't only mean something that has to be redeemed. Only if something is able to be redeemed, which is, so let's go back to the sugya that we learned yesterday. So if you have an item, let's speak about a living animal, that you were magdashit lebedek habayis, and it died. So we learned from the Torah that you cannot redeem it. It belongs to the bedek habayis. The din will be is that you won't be chayiv me'ilah. Because of this rule, v'chol shuhu ta'un not only means requires, it also means something that could be redeemed is subject to the unique dinim of me'ilah. Make no mistake, if someone derives benefit from that carcass, they're not good. If me'ilah is because of gezela, if me'ilah is because of the kedusha of the Beis HaMikdash, you're violating. But the unique dinim of me'ilah, keren v'choimish v'al-korban hasham me'ilah, you won't be subject to. So now the Gemara is saying, chalav is dead. Chalav doesn't stand. It's a doimein. So, l'cha'ira, the question would be, why does the Mishnah say that you chayiv me'ilah for the milk? And the answer must be, based on what we said yesterday, when do we need to have hamada v'haracha? Only when the item that was consecrated while alive, while it was able to stand. Then it died. Now you cannot redeem it. Can't stand anymore. If something lechatchila was consecrated dead, from the beginning it was not shayich laha'amada, doesn't matter that you can't do hamada v'haracha. And that's the pshat. That's the reason why you're chayiv me'ilah even in the milk. That's a great proof. Says the Gemara, counters the Gemara, no, it's not a proof. That in tifterine l'shem hilchos mesa lo yachil. I reject your understanding that we differentiate whether you consecrate something alive, which is the chamoir, versus the milk that always is like a mesa. That's not the pshat. Why? Because the taninon chamoir. Because since the Mishnah spoke about someone who was magdish a chamoir and its milk, the Gemara is saying, the way we'll learn the Gemara, it would make more sense that the Mishnah is speaking about someone that was magdish a dead chamoir. We would like for the chamoir and the milk to be similar, not dissimilar. And therefore what? What will be the chiddush of the Mishnah? If we're being magdish a dead chamor or a living chamor, what does the Mishnah mean with all of that? So let's take a step back quickly and review something else that we learned yesterday. This whole Omar Rabbi Yochanan, how did we get into all of that? Because in our Mishnah, there was a machlekes, whether the animal dies, whether you can redeem it. You are magdish a tzvi. It's a kosher animal, but it's not le-mizbeach. It's a tzvi. It's not a carbon. So the Chachamim said, if it died, then you redeem it. Rab Shimon says, no. I'm sorry, the Tanakama says bury it. Rab Shimon says redeem it. How did we learn the machlokes? So we learned the machlokes that why wouldn't the Chachamim say you could redeem it? Because you can't do hamad of aracha. Because you cannot do hamad of aracha. So what about Rab Shimon? So as we learned yesterday, that the actual pasuk in Parshas B'chukoisai, even though the Torah says behema tameya, if you remember what we learned yesterday, the pshat in the behema tameya in the context of hamad v'haracha is an animal that was being mugdash lemizbeach, and it became blemished. Since it became blemished, it became, so to say, tamei lemizbeach. And the question is whether we also apply that din to bedek habayis, to behema tameya, or not. That's really a subject to a machlokes tanoim. So the Gemara says, don't tell me that the Mishnah is speaking about a living chamoir and, so to say, dead milk. No. I'm going to tell you better pshat in the Mishnah Me'ila. Amar Rab Chanina Kumi Rav Mana, that the Mishnah is following Rab Shimon. Rab Shimon holds, like as we just explained, that the only item that needs hamad v'haracha, it can't stand, you can't redeem it, is only something that was mugdash lamizbeach, only. We don't apply it to bedek habayis. We don't apply it to meiser sheni. So that Mishnah follows kache bedek habayis ain't unam hamad v'haracha, and that's why the Mishnah is telling you, not because we differentiate whether you were magdashit while it was alive or whether you were magdashit while it was dead. No, the Mishnah was trying to point out that we don't follow the Chachamim. This Mishnah does not follow the Chachamim. Ein echanami. Could be l'Chachamim, even if you were magdish a dead chamor, even though it was never shaykh to stand, l'Chachamim who hold that we always need hamad v'haracha, you can never redeem a chamor. And by the way, if you can never redeem a dead chamor from the beginning to the end, we will apply the rule v'chol shehu ta'un pidyon moyalam boy, v'chol she'eino ta'un pidyon. The taka wouldn't be me'ila. Elamad, the whole Mishnah only follows the Tana Rab Shimon. So the Gemara counters, it can be. I reject what you're saying. We do have a proof. Don't tell me that the Mishnah Me'ila is simply articulating the Shita of Rab Shimon. And I'll tell you why. Amalei, Rav Bana tells Rabbi Chanina that if the Mishnah is telling you the din of Rab Shimon, then why would the Mishnah have to speak about a donkey? By the way, a donkey is a behema tameya. Why are you saying a behema tameya? Afilu shar kol be'ema, according to the Tana Rab Shimon. The only time we say, there's no hamad v'haracha, is only if it was royal amizbeach, then it got blemished. Now we say, and then it died. So normally, psuli amigdashim, redeem it. Elama, if it died, you can't redeem it. If that's the pshat, if this Mishnah follows Rab Shimon, we wouldn't have spoken it out by a chamar. The Mishnah would have told you a bigger chiddush. What happens if you're magdash a behema tohira? Even a behema tohira, if it was never fit to go on the mizbeach, like a tzvi, a behema tohira, at least it's tohira. Chamar is not even tohira. It's closer to the case of the tohira. In other words, if you say that the tohira's case is the most limited, only something that was royal mizbeach that became blemished, so tell us, let Rab Shimon, a case that is as close as you can get to that. Why did we say a chamor? No, back to what we were trying to say, that your magdash a chamor, the chamor didn't die in the Mishnah Me'ilah. The chamor is living, the Mishnah doesn't follow Rab Shimon, the Mishnah follows the Rabbanan. The Rabbanan, as we learned yesterday, they apply the din of the need of hamada v'haracha, not only in the case of the Chumash, actually, we apply it to a behema tohira, we apply it to a behema tameya, we lebedek habayis, we even apply it to Meiser Sheni. Eloma, if something was consecrated already dead, there even the Chachamim will be moide. It doesn't bother me if you can't do hamada v'haracha, and that's exactly the chiddush of the Mishnah in Me'ilah. Chamoir is shaykh to Me'ilah because it's living. The chalav, the milk of the chamoir, was never living. Milk is a doimen. So I don't care that the milk doesn't have hamada v'haracha because it was never able to stand, even while you consecrated it. And that's why the Mishnah says you're chayv me'ilah both for the chamoir and you're chayv me'ilah for the chalav. That closes the sugya. Okay, and now we are moving back. We're going to go through the Mishnah again. The first, we are 3 lines before the bottom of the Amid. Yes, we spoke about this case yesterday. We're coming back to it. Now, this is beautiful. Again, what's the din? A person, in the Mishnah spoke about someone who borrowed containers. That nuance, I'm not going to go there. It doesn't matter whether I borrowed or not. The question is, I want to remind us what we learned on Davav Amid Beis in our pagination. First of all, even though Meiser Sheni money is only allowed to be used for oichel mashke and something that you can anoint, you are allowed to buy a kankan of wine. There's a chiddush there. Let me go back to the beginning. What's the chiddush? You can argue you're paying money for it. Some of it, the barrel, is not edible. We don't say that. We already said that we view the purchase to be for the wine. The barrel is tam, and the barrel is yatsa l'chulin. The barrel is not, you don't have to then sell the barrel and with its value buy food. Okay, that was the beginning of the sugya. Then we have our Mishnah. What happened in our Mishnah? That was the Nekuda. If a person already declared the wine Meiser Sheni prior to sealing the barrels, that's the cutoff point. Even though it's in the barrel will never acquire any Kedusha of Meiser Sheni. But if you put in the barrel Tevel, and then you seal the barrel, that's what the Mishnah says. And after you seal the barrel, you declare, the wine is Meiser Sheni. Here, we're going to say that as long as the wine is in the barrel, the barrel is viewed as Meiser Sheni barrel, meaning 2 dinim. Aleph, if you plan to take the wine to Yerushalmi, if you don't plan to redeem it, you can't change containers. Just like the Meiser Sheni has to be taken to Yerushalmi, so does the barrel. Another din, if you decide, I'm not going to schlep the barrel, I'll redeem it on money, fine. When you redeem it on money, you have to also redeem the value of the barrel. You have to do that because the barrel is Meiser Sheni. So first of all, where do we get this from? Where do we get this halacha? That's the first kasha the Gemara is going to want to know. Doesn't matter, very good. Shlomo is saying it's not about the quantity of wine in the barrel, it has to do with a sealed barrel, but this is important. If you declared it Meiser Sheni prior to sealing, the barrel also will not acquire Meiser Sheni. Where do we get this from? Aman Abzeira. And really, it's a hekish. That's the way the Bavli would word it. And it's amazing. Amra Torah. What's the Amra Torah? You have to know Baal Peh. In Parshas Re'eh, we keep on quoting the Psukim. One pasuk says, regarding Meiser Sheni, that's going to be taken to Yerushalayim. V'achalta lifnei Hashem alekecha b'makom asher yivchar. The Torah doesn't say the word Yerushalayim, ki yadua, but it refers to Yerushalayim. So then the next pasuk says that if you don't, v'nosata ba'kesef, that's if you want to redeem it, and v'tzarta ha'kesef b'yadcha, and take the kesef to Yerushalayim. So the Torah juxtaposes the eating of the Meiser Sheni and the selling of the Meiser Sheni for money. What do we learn from that? That just like in the second pasuk, where the Torah says v'nosata ba'kesef v'tzarta kesef b'yadcha v'halachta lamakom over there, and then you have the klal u'prato klal, that you buy whatever you want, b'bakur u'batzoyin, b'yayin u'b'sheichad, etc. So just like when you spend the money, these are very interesting words. Poir tehu, spend every penny. Bamigdash, It's beautiful. Bamigdash normally means in the Beis Hamikdash. Many times, Bamigdash refers to the whole city of Yerushalmi and HaKodesh. That's what it means over here. Just like when you spend the money, you have to spend the money to eat it in Yerushalayim. Similarly, when you are gathering the produce, prior to going there, when the gathering of your product to take it to Yerushalayim has to be similar to the way you eat it in Yerushalayim. And the gathering will also include gathering it, and if you need to, selling it into money. What are we being makish? Turn to Daf Lamed Beis Amud Beis. That ma b'mikdash. Just like when, now here we're speaking about someone, the second pasuk that you took money, porteu b'mikdash means you're buying money over there. That ma b'mikdash, just like when you buy with Ma'aser Sheni money, a container of wine in Yerushalayim, yatsa kan l'chulin. And we're going to quote again what we learned before. We're going to read the Pnei Moshe. You know what? Let's go to Pnei Moshe before we read the words af b'gvulin. Look on top Pnei Moshe. Ma b'mikdash yatsa kan l'chulin kolemer. Ma motzinu. Ma motzinu means a hekesh. V'lokeach yayin because of Ma'aser Yerushalayim, which is the second pasuk that we quoted. V'nosata b'kesef, v'tzarta kesef v'yotcha v'halachta, and over there you got to buy. That v'im lokach chaviyas stuma. We just quoted that before. We learned this on Davav. If you buy in Yerushalayim a sealed barrel, the din is yotza hakan kan l'chulin. That's the din. Because we consider the barrel, let me say like this, tuffle to the wine. If the barrel would be a davar bifnei atzmai, then the kankan wouldn't be yotza l'chulin, because I used Ma'aser Sheni money to buy the barrel and the wine. You can argue, okay, now take the barrel that it's empty, sell it, and the money used for food. We don't say that. We say that when you buy a sealed barrel, yotza kankan l'chulin, kidatran be'pedei kama, that what halikeach kadei yain stumais. And there's some qualifications. Mokim shedar kam limacher stumais. So know that. So the din is yotza kan l'chulin. Why? What's the logic? The answer is mishum the hakan kan tafel lahayayin. And therefore, what do we say? We say v'nivla damav b'dmei hayayin. We don't consider you spent Ma'aser Sheni money on the barrel. We view it ki'ilu, all of your money was spent on the yayin. But you bought the barrel. Yet the barrel is part of the wine. And therefore, now back in the Gemara, and then we'll go back into the Pnei Moshe. So what are we learning from there? Af b'gvulin. B'gvulin would be our case. That what? That after you have a sealed bottle, a barrel of wine, you declare it Ma'aser Sheni, nispas kankan Ma'aser. Let me apply that kankan tafel liyayin bein l'kula bein l'chumra. We just quoted in Davav that it's l'kula, even though you spent Ma'aser Sheni money, since the whole time we viewed the kankan, the container, not even there. It's part of the wine, so you only paid for the wine. So the kankan is yatsa l'chulin. So let me use it now in the other direction. If the kankan is bottled to the wine, think about that. So when you buy or when you declare Ma'aser Sheni. You declared Ma'aser Sheni not on the barrel. I know that. You declared Ma'aser Sheni on the wine. But if the kankan is tuffle to the yayin, so then whatever the yayin is now, in that direction. Let's read inside the Pnei Moshe.
Wait, what does the sealing do to it? I mean, are we saying when you seal it, they become one, and without sealing it, they're separate items?
100%. Yes. I'll tell you more. I'll tell you like this, Kevin, even practically, when I have an unsealed barrel of wine, when people purchase the wine, sometimes they'll purchase the container, but it's probably they will not purchase the container. When you have a sealed container of wine, the buyer buys the whole thing with the container.
Got it.
So let's read inside the Pnei Moshe. Af b'gvulan nispas kan ma'aser kolemer. Umikan lomadnu. The b'gvulan ipchohu. This rule that the kan is tafel hayayin, which was learned lekula, we don't care whether it's lekula or lechumra. We will apply it to when you are declaring something Ma'aser Sheni b'gvulan. And here, the consequence will be l'chumra, which means she'im b'shas k'di Hashem. When you declare it, lahamaiser, which is still in the gvulin, when it's in a sealed barrel. So we say that nase hakan kan tofel hayayin. He has good words. It's very nicely articulated. And therefore, I know you didn't declare the barrel anything. So what? The barrel is tofel to the yayin. V'chal shem maiser gam alakankan. Why? Lefi shelo oilam amrinan bekankan sasum shu tofel hayayin. Bein shulokula be kegoin shulekech bekasa masrim Yerushalmi ubein bigvulin shkshmaisa shuluchumra. Now I want to add one thing by heart that we said when we began the Mishnah Lachavav. Based on this source of the ruling, let me add a kula now. Okay, so the barrel is part of the wine, Meiser Sheni. What happens if someone doesn't sell it? They take it and they have to take the barrel. And in Yerushalmi, they finish drinking all the wine. Now what? The barrel automatically goes now to chulin. In other words, the reason why the barrel, even l'chumra, is considered meiser sheni is not because the barrel is meiser sheni. It's because of the rule that the kankan is tafel lahayayin. Once there is no more yayin, then the barrel goes back to be a metzias bifnei atzmai. Bifnei atzmai, it never was meiser sheni. That's why we said in the Mishnah that even when we say that the kankan becomes meiser sheni, it's only for the two dinim. Either take it to Yerushalmi, or if you are being paid it while it's filled with wine, you have to also get money for the barrel. But if you take it to Yerushalmi and you finish drinking the wine, there now the kankan will be yotza l'chulin. Just want to make that clear. Okay. Now, to what Kevan said, so what if it's sealed? And I said, what you sell it with the barrel. There is one other detail that we're going to see later in today's daf. I'll just say it right now. It's not only because a buyer will buy it with the barrel. The barrel enhances the wine. See, there's two things that people want with wine. They don't want impurities to fall in. But there's more than that. We know this from cork. When the barrel is sasum, it's going to improve the quality of the wine. Maybe not always, but that's the general rule. Once the kankan is open, the kankan is not serving the wine. Why am I saying that? Because we'll see later today that if you have oil in a barrel, same thing. Oil was declared meiser sheni, even in a kankan sasum. We will never say that the kankan is tafel hashemen, because tafel hashemen also has to mean not only because of the buying. I just want to add that it's because the barrel actually enhances. It doesn't enhance the oil. It doesn't make the oil better. And we're speaking about yain that's not mavushal. And taka yain that's not mavushal. Not that I know. I'm just repeating what the people say. It could constantly get better. It's getting better, but it's getting better.
Doesn't the kankan give flavor to both oil and wine?
That's something else. That's only if the kankan was a sherry cask. Only if the kankan has something in it. Just to speak about sherry cask, just a chazer that sugya bekitzer. And it's interesting that normally Hasidim were machmer. We are not machmer by sherry casks. You will not find a Lubavitcher Rav that's going to say that you need to have a hechsher because of sherry casks, because this was a tshuva by the Chacham Tzvi. There are certain poskim in the prior generations that in certain groups, they are the ultimate authority. We view the Chacham Tzvi on that level. I think he lived in the 17th century. Someone can Google it. 1600 and something. I'm going way back. He wrote a tshuva regarding this. This is an old machloikas. And his rationale is that the absorption of these casks from whatever non-kosher is only kedei klipa. He proves that halachically. And therefore it's batul. If it would be the whole barrel, maybe, even, I don't know, it can also be batul. The fact that it only absorbs a small amount, only a kedei klip of the barrel, so therefore it's always batul, and he was lenient. I know that every now and then the kashrus organizations, they make a big to-do. Every now and then. And I'm not judging them, but don't forget, they have skin in the game. For them, it's beneficial to start restricting whiskeys and vodka because then you have to have their kashrus symbol. So it's by default, they need that. They want that. Anyways, just to know that by us, if someone wants to be machmer, good for you. but you will not find in Hasidic Kreisen, certainly not in Lubavitch, Rabbanim that are going to outright prohibit having whiskey that was made in a cherry cask, because this is an old topic. Great Poskim spoke about it. It's not a new thing. And great Rabbanim paskin Lukula. So al pi halacha, we're not going to go against them. And if you want to go lefnim yishura sadin, zum gesund. Okay, back over here. Now, Zolaf letoichen stam actually gofan. The Mishnah again that differentiates. When do you make the container Meiser Sheni? Only if the wine was declared Meiser Sheni after you sealed it. That's what the Mishnah says. And what the Gemara wants to point out, what we're going to say now is Pshita, what we're going to say later is a huge Chiddush, is that the cutoff point, how do you make the wine Meiser Sheni? You make it Meiser Sheni by declaring it Meiser Sheni. And this is very important. So what we're going to say now, I kept on repeating, but you're going to see where the Gemara is going with it. So first, the Gemara is going to say, to make it very clear, that Rab Chia b'shem Rabbi Yechanan, Keni Masnisa, this is the right way of learning the Mishnah. Im actually Gofen Karashem, if prior to sealing it, you declared, you verbally said, oh, the wine in this container is Meiser Sheni, even though now you sealed it. Even though right after the Kriya Hashem you sealed it, you have now a sealed container. The fact that you made the declaration prior to sealing it, Kankan is not bottled to the Yayin. Kankan is not Meiser Sheni. How would it be Meiser Sheni? It's a container, it's not produce. And therefore, never like Kana Meiser Sheni, meaning even after you sealed it. It's only Misha Goffen. At first you put Tevel in a container. Then you seal the container. And only then Kana Shem. That is the case where the Mishnah writes, Kana Meiser Kankan. Kana Meiser Kankan. The words, not Kana, the way they word it. So the Meiser acquired, it swallowed the container. Now, where did the Mishnah go from here? You wonder the Seder in the Mishnah. The Mishnah then went mamish to Truma. Now, what did the Mishnah speak about Truma? By Truma, we were not discussing in the Mishnah explicitly regarding the status of the container. It's almost a given. The Mishnah went to the case of Truma. What happens if a barrel of Truma gets mixed with barrels of Chulin? We already know that if normally Truma to be bottled needs to have a ratio of 100 against 1. So the Mishnah was telling you a chiddush that if the barrel is sealed, even if you have 100 barrels of Chulin, because of a sealed barrel being considered a davar chashav and a davar chashav afilu be'elaf loy bottle, it will not be bottled. So now the Gemara is saying the following. What's going to happen if you filled up a barrel of wine, tevel? I'm going to go through the same thing. You declared it truma, then you sealed it, and then it got mixed in another 100. The Mishnah is going to say it will be bottled. Just like when it came to Meiser Sheni. The Mishnah only by Meiser Sheni spoke about, is the Kankan Meiser Sheni or not? It depends when you were Kodesh Shem. Now apply the same rule to the case of Truma. That it says in the Mishnah, now this is regarding Truma, actually Gofen Kodesh Shem. Actually Gofen Kodesh Shem means that you declared a Truma prior to sealing it, but now you sealed it. And now it got mixed with another sealed 100 chulin barrels. Yes. This is Gavaldik. 1 second. It's a davar chashuv. It's not a davar chashuv. When do we say that it's a davar chashuv? Only if the barrel is truma. Now, the Mishnah never said those words. So I want to go to, is the barrel truma? Same thing. If you declared it truma prior to sealing it, the barrel is not truma. If you filled up the barrel and then you sealed it and then you declared the wine table, this is truma. Now the barrel is truma. If the barrel and the wine are truma, it's a davar chashuv. The moment we separate the barrel and the wine, how do we separate the barrel of the wine? Even for one halacha, the wine is truma, the barrel is not truma. The moment we say that, this is fakert arai to the Chacham Tzvi. The barrel has in it beliois of truma. So what? Let's go with what we just said about Hashgacha Pratis. If you take this, let me go to this case. You have a barrel, you fill it up with wine, tevel. You declare a truma. Then you seal it. Based on our Mishnah, even though the Mishnah never said this, but we're going to apply the same din. Then the barrel is not truma. What does it mean? I'll give you a mashal. You finish drinking the wine. You now put chulin wine into it. Will that wine be allowed to be consumed by a non-kohen? The answer is yes. Even if there isn't the bittul, because the barrel is not truma.
Is there any matzain in all this?
No.
You're not
No.
observer?
Only if you declared the wine, the tevel wine, truma, after you sealed it, only then do we say, now we have a davar chashuv. And now if such a barrel got mixed with meya, elef, loy batul, then kol shehem. This is amazing. This is a big chiddush. Now the Gemara says, another din, that can you designate one barrel as truma for all the barrels near it? So the rule is normally truma has to be min hamukaf. If it's min hamukaf, it would be good. Mishnah says no. If you filled tevel, everything is tevel, and then you sealed it, which means now whatever you'll declare will mean the barrel and the wine will have the same status. The moment you seal the barrels, the Mishnah says, every barrel is viewed as a davar bifnei atzmai, even though they're physically touching each other. So that's called shaloi min hamukaf. Now you're chayiv to separate from each barrel its own truma. You cannot declare one barrel truma for everything. That's the next case. That if you sealed it, but you called it truma prior to sealing it, then it means it wasn't sealed yet. I am allowed, even though, let's say I have over here 50 barrels, they're not sealed. I can declare right now this barrel, one out of 50 is 2%, is truma for everything. But if I want to declare a truma after everything is sealed, now everyone is standing by itself. Then these are the words in the Mishnah: is you have to be toidem mikol echad ve'echad. Okay, so that sounds straightforward. Now the Gemara quotes a brayso. These words are from a brayso. All of these rules, we have 3 rules. All of these rules are only if the content in the barrel is wine, b'shal yayin, but if you have same barrels filled with oil, there no difference. Bein actually gafan, bein mishagafan, doesn't matter when you are declaring the oil ma'aser sheni or when you are declaring the oil truma. In all of the cases, loy kana ma'aser kankan. And therefore, first of all, din number 1 is the barrel. That's the first thing. The barrel will never have a status of ma'aser sheni or truma, even though you sealed it. Number 2, bein actually gafan, bein mishagafan. Number 2, if there was a bittul, that means there's a mixture. Let's go to truma, oil. Even though you declared the oil truma only after you sealed it, and this sealed container got mixed, and you don't know which one is which, it will be oilos be'echad b'meya. And then number 3, regarding taking truma from itself, that bein actually gafan, bein mishagafan, you first filled up the container with oil, then you sealed the container. I have 50 sealed containers. It's all tevel. And I'm deciding, you know what? Perfect. 1 from 50 is 2%, the beinini. 1 barrel, the one that I know, is going to be truma for everything. You are allowed to do that. You don't say that it's not min hamukaf. Why? Because since the barrel is never going to acquire the status of either ma'aser sheni or truma, even though it's sealed, it's called min hamukaf. When does it become a davar bifnei atzmai? If the barrel and its contents will be truma. So all of the 3 dinim that we learned in the Mishnah will not apply to oil. Why not? Look inside the Rash Sirilio. We're going to begin in middle. 3 lines from the top and the right. By the dot. Vitama. Why? The Gabi Yayin, regarding wine, Imheim Pesuchais, when the barrels are opened, Nifsat Hayayin Verechai Kala, the wine gets degraded. Its quality gets ruined. It can turn quicker into vinegar. And even if it's not going to turn into vinegar, it loses some of the reyach. In other words, the sealing of a barrel is to the betterment of the wine. The barrel is serving. It's not just holding. Hilkach yesh chiluk boy bein gafan leloy gafan. Aval shemen, and even though the Brayse speaks about shemen, so the Rashi is adding, it's not just the shemen. It can be dvash. Ein sisi masan. Why are you sealing it? So you shouldn't lose it by accident when you transport it. That's not serving. That's to prevent damage. Or elalinikias. Place you don't want something some impurity to get mixed in there. Avoloi leilui hashemen. Hilkach kiloi gafan dami. Sealed is like unsealed. V'chuli v'chuli v'chuli. So that's a very big statement. So all of the three dinim only apply to yain. And now we're going to move on to today's final topic. And we actually began yesterday, the Flamed Aleph, we began in the middle of the Mishnah, we began from this Beishamai. What we learned yesterday was good in the Havamina. That, listen, since the last case of the Mishnah was about if you declared the wine Truma, after you seal the barrel, you have to be Toidim Mikol Echad De'echad. That was the last case. So now, Beishamai Yoimrim, the way they understood Beishamai Beisilol, what happens if a person doesn't want to be Toidim Mikol Echad De'echad? He doesn't want to do that. So Beisilol says, that's the way we learn Pshat in the Mishnah. Okay, open up the barrels. Now that you opened up the barrels, it's not Shaloi Min Amukaf. Now you can be Toidim Echad Ala Koil. Beishamai, for some reason, say, once the barrels were sealed, it's not enough that you open up the barrels. You know when you will be allowed to be Toidim from one on all, if you pour all of the wine back into the wine press or into some big vat. You physically are ma'ad of it. Now you can take 2% ala koil. That was the way we learned Pshat. The only problem is, what would be the logic behind Beishamai? It doesn't make sense. Was you have to be Toidim Mikol Echad. Why? Because you have to be Menamukav. First of all, just to know, Menamukav is a Lechatchila. Okay, but the Mishnah is speaking about Lechatchila. If the barrels are unsealed, who cares? Like when you have 5 piles of grain, 5 sacks of grain, you can't be Toidim from one on. Of course you could. You don't have to physically mix them together. So if this would be the pshat of Beishamai and Beisilol, that it's only Behemshech, the last end of the Mishnah, the Gemara can't understand why would Beishamai says what he says, and therefore we reject this understanding. The Machlokes Beishamai and Beisilol does not go back to this last case, and let's read it inside. Amar Rabbi Chananya, based on our initial understanding of this Machlokes, v'kasha al de Beishamai, that ma beina, why would now unsealed barrels of wine, why would that be different? He's giving a mashal, chamisha sakin begoiden. You have 5 sacks of grain in the goiden, that ilu chamisha sakin begoiden, if you have 5 sacks means that physically, the grain in one sack physically is not touching the grain in the other sack. Nevertheless, if it's min hamukaf, it's in close proximity, you see all of the grains. So when you give the approximate 2%, it will be approximate. We don't want it to be exact, but we want it to be approximate. You're seeing it, it's all here. We also want to make sure that everything is be'en, because if it's shaloi min amukov, maybe what's there is not there anymore. Maybe someone ate it. Maybe someone did something else with it. Okay, you want it min amukov. Ilu chamisha sakan begoiden shema ein toidrim asma zelzeh. Of course you could. So it doesn't make sense to say that this is the case for which Beishamai had gezakt. You have to pour it back into the wine press. Why would you have to pour it back? Vadai, everyone is moida that if you seal the barrels and now you unsealed it, now that it's unsealed, you can be toidam me'echad ala koil. Vadai. So what is the machlokes Beishamai and Beisilol referring to? The Gemara is going to give us 2 options. Option number 1 is Rabbi Shua ben Levi Amar al Horishoina. Al Horishoina Chevra, look inside the Rash Sirilio, 3 lines from the top on the left. Al Horishoina means on the first case of the Mishnah, look inside the Rash Sirilio, Rabbi Shua Omer al Horishoina, and now the Rash is Goyres Hoishava, which means that Kishu Hufsha Mishnah Zuveis HaMidrash, when they were repeating, when they were learning this Mishnah of Beishamai and Beisilol, even though Rabbeinu HaKadosh put it where he put it, it wasn't about, don't make it behemshech to the last statement of the sealed barrels. It wasn't on that. What was it? Al Shaila Rishoina Sheshu Alu. It was regarding the first question. V'loy al bava the gafan shenu el bava Rishoina. Tahainu. What's the bava Rishoina? So the Rash says that kizilaf stam, you poured wine in a barrel. And now, v'kara sheim, koidim shegafan. You declared whether it's Meiser Sheni or whether it's Truma prior to sealing it. So what did we say, Chevra? That the barrel did not acquire the Kedusha, let's say, of Truma. So Allah hu da amrei beishamai, and this says beishamai, the aim was hu da amrinan. I don't agree with the way the Mishnah Stam wrote it. When do we say that what? The loy kana meiser, that the barrel is not meiser, sheni, or the barrel is not truma? Which would mean, in the case of meiser sheni, the yachal of toisim bigvulin, you can be below the mekankan. If you want to sell the wine, you don't have to sell the barrel. That's only that when you actually come to redeem it, you physically you pour all of the contents into a larger press. You are befeid showing that you don't care about the container. The oz have a gili das. The legof oisoi achashakara shame. Ela mishum shmirasan baderech, but not because you want the barrel to acquire kedushas meiser sheni. Beis Hillel says no. Beis Hillel that the dai bepsichas kolum. So both, even Beis Hillel holds that even though loy kana meiser kan, when you actually redeem it, you have to unseal it. Abel kulu moida. The im loy pasach elo hakan shesoisa v'suloi kama. If you're not going to open up all of the barrels, gali daite denichale begofen. Oy bazoi v'kotche umatfisei b'kedushas meiser. This is a gewaldige statement. We'll stop over here and we'll continue the other explanation tomorrow. So in other words, both Beis Shammai and Beis Hillel argue with what we just said already for 2 days, already for 3 days. That if you were koyde shem koydim shegafan loikana kankan, not so simple. Loikana kankan, you want to redeem it. You don't want to have to redeem the barrel. Beis Hillel says, oy bazo, you have to open them up. Beis Shammai says, I'll tell you more. You have to open it up and you have to pour it into a bigger container to show that you don't care about the kankan. But if you don't do that, you have to redeem the demei kankan. To be continued.